Welcome to my channel. Ghost Train Fire 1979. The Ghost Train was part of Luna Park's attractions. The park is located at Olympic Drive, in the harbourside suburb of Milsons Point, Sydney, Australia. The park was built during 1935, and would open for several months each year, until in 1972, the park decided to open all year round. It would close in 1979, after the tragic Ghost Train fire. A lot of the park would be demolished, and a new park constructed. The park closed in 1988, after it was found that several of the rides needed urgent repair. However, the repairs were never carried out, and the Government of New South Wales passed the lease on to somebody else. The park opened in 1995, but would soon close again, after noise from the Big Dipper roller coaster upset the residents in the area. The park decided to decrease the opening hours, but found it didn't see so many patrons, and therefore profits started to drop. A redevelopment of the park took place, and it reopened in 2004, where it has been in operation ever since. The Ghost Train was designed and constructed in 1931. The Ghost Train was one of the original rides at the park. The Ghost Train was one of the most popular rides in the park. It had lots of twists and turns along a 180-meter electric track. The ride had lots of scary figures, which jumped out at the riders, and also featured a fake fireplace. The ride lasted for around 2 minutes 30 seconds, and was very dark inside, which added to the scary feeling. It ran for almost 45 years without any incidents. The park saw millions of people over the years, and was a very popular park. Sadly, the park would become notorious in the late 70s. It was the evening of June 9, 1979, when a terrible fire broke out inside the Ghost Train at around 10:15 p.m. The fire completely consumed the ride, and it would take around an hour to get the fire under control. There were water supply issues at the time, and it took longer to extinguish the fire. At the time of the fire, there were around 35 people still inside the ride. It was only when smoke started escaping from the tunnel doors that anyone knew something was wrong. The staff quickly raised the alarm and started to pull people from the ride when cars began coming out of the exit. In the confusion, they believed that everyone inside had gotten out. In the hours that followed the fire, it was sadly discovered that there had been people still inside the ride. The bodies of 7 people were discovered. Sadly, John Godson, and his 2 children, Damien and Craig, were found deceased inside, along with 4 Waverley College students, Jonathan Billings, Richard Carroll, Michael Johnson, and Seamus Rahali. It was believed that the 7 riders inside had climbed out of their cars and tried to find their way out. Because the ride was like a maze inside, and very dark, it would have been very difficult to find their way out. It isn't known if they got out of their car because this was on fire, or because they believed they could get out quickly. It was reported that some of the cars were coming out of the ride on fire. Luna Park was shut down straight away, and an investigation was conducted. The investigation has become the subject of much speculation over the years since. One of the victims' family members went to the site a couple days after the fire to lay flowers, and found the site had been cleared. The cleanup had started to take place the following day after the fire, and was never treated as a crime scene, and really could not have been fully investigated into the cause of the fire. How they could determine what had happened when debris had already been taken away is disturbing. They blamed it on electrical problems and never listened to what witnesses said they had seen. A witness had told the police that he had smelt kerosene burning inside the ride, but he said the police just dismissed this, and didn't really want to know. He wasn't the only person who reported the smell of kerosene. An inquest found that the true cause of the fire could not conclusively be determined, but believed the wiring was a cause of the fire, but of course this would have been ruled out if a proper investigation had been conducted. A witness claims he was standing next to a group of men, and had heard one of them say that he had spread kerosene in the ride, and had lit a match. The park had also been advised to install a sprinkler system inside the ghost train in 1977, but they never did this. It was stated that while the park's owners and management had failed in their duty of care towards its patrons, the failure was not necessary to support a charge of criminal negligence, and there was no justice for the victims. The government called for new tenders to operate the park. It was in 1987 that the case was reopened, but they found no new evidence, and also found that the original police investigation had been inadequate, and the inquiry ineffective. Unfortunately, without the debris from the ride, the new investigation into the case would not be able to examine this, to find out the true cause. Witnesses have always said that if they had suspected an electrical fault as the cause, why were the cars still operating, given that they were electric? After the fire, there was a call for the park to close and be demolished. In May 2007, Anne Buckingham, the niece of Abe Safran, claimed that her uncle was the one responsible for the fire. She claimed it was part of his plan to gain control of the park's lease. He had already approached the park's owners a few years previous wanting to buy the park. Abe Safran was an Australian hotelier, nightclub owner and property developer, who was one of the major figures in organized crime in Australia. He is said to have been involved in a range of criminal activities, including illegal alcohol sales, stolen goods, gambling, prostitution, drug dealing, bribery and extortion. In 2021, an investigation documentary, called The Ghost Train Fire, directly implicated Abe Safran in an arson plot at Luna Park in 1979, which resulted in the deaths of 7 people. It was reported that the crime was covered up by corrupt police and government figures. Witnesses who had been interviewed at the time said they had seen real flames in the artificial fire display, but they did look like part of the display. Police never looked into the possibility that arson could have been a cause. Sadly, for all those who survived the fire that night, the memory still haunts them. They had gone there to enjoy themselves, and ended up fighting to survive. Just recently, the New South Wales government has offered a $1 million reward for any new information regarding the ghost train fire of 1979. The police have appealed to the public to come forward with any evidence that they may have. Given the fact this is such a large reward, we really hope someone finally comes forward to tell them who was responsible for the fire, and the victims get the justice they deserve. This is a tragic case that may have been very different if safety measures had been implemented as instructed before the fire. We cannot say for certain if anyone would have still perished in the fire that night, but would like to hope they may have stood more of a chance at getting out in time. Like so many of these tragic cases, profits over safety seem to be the trend. Our hearts go out to the victims' families. May your loved ones never be forgotten. Our hearts also go out to the survivors, who witnessed this tragic fire. We hope that everyone from this fire gets justice. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to my channel to view other content.